Today I'm talking to Dr. Bruce Lipton, stem cell biologist, best-selling author, and internationally recognized leader in bridging science and spirit. Hello, Bruce, and very welcome to the podcast.
I am so happy to be here with you because part of the story that I tell, a big part of the story is you've already lived that story. So it's kind of nice to say, look, we can talk about our histories together on this one because we have information to empower people so much. And I appreciate this opportunity because those people who are watching us are what I would call cultural creatives. These are people looking for answers that they're not going to find in the box, and we're going to give them some answers that can help them find some health and happiness and harmony along the way. So thank you.
Oh, this is amazing. I'm really, really grateful. It brings me so much joy to talk to you, like Bruce. I've been following your work for years, and I read the anniversary book, the anniversary edition of your best-selling book, The Biology of Belief, Unleashing the Power of Consciousness, Matter, and Miracles. Oh my God. Shall we start here?
We should start where you think it's interesting because I might have something to say. Who knows? We'll find out.
Yes, I'd love to start right here. What is the connection between consciousness, the matter in the physical world, and the miracles in life?
Well, a simple question, a little bit more difficult to answer, but I'll try and make it short as I can. And that is this. Number one, we have an illusion that we live in a physical world. I mean, that's our experiences from day to day, from the time we were born. As physical. Oh, look, I can touch something. You know, there's a table, a chair, there's trees, and all this. And I believed in this material universe as separate from another part called the energy universe. So Isaac Newton separates. We have matter, we have energy. And in that Newtonian physics, the two don't really talk to each other. So whatever's made out of matter can only be affected by something made out of matter. And energy can only be affected by something out of energy. Well, that was our belief system until 1927. And a new physics came in, and it's called quantum physics. And I said, well, what's relevant? And I said, well, they started taking apart matter, the atom. And then they found that little solar system with the nucleus and the electrons running around. And they said, oh, smaller particles. And then they started to take those apart, and still smaller particles, quarks. But then when they said, what the heck is a quark made out of? And all of a sudden they found out nothing made out of matter. A quark is energy. I go, but yeah, but energies make atoms. I go, yeah, but that's the whole point. An atom is energy. And unfortunately, then comes the definition. Energy is an invisible moving force. Okay. You can't see electricity. You can't see the magnetic field. It's invisible, but it's there and it has a force. Well, it turns out that everything we perceive as matter is actually all energy. And it's just an illusion of light, because when light hits energy, the photons are bounced back. So when I talk to people, well, you can see all this stuff. I say, well, how can you see it? I say, because the lights are on. It's like, it sounds like a joke, but it's not, because when the lights are on, no photons, you can't see anything there. You need the light to bounce off the energy and then be reflected. So when I look at you, your beautiful picture here in my screen, I know that you're an energy being underneath all that beauty, but the light from your room is reflected so we can see your energy, because it's not, we don't see your energy, we see the shape of your energy because the photons are looking at it. So it's very hard. I had to read it several times. I had to get into it. I had to, it wasn't anything, oh yeah, I just read that, we're all energy, everything's fine. I said, no, it's like mind boggling that everything is energy. And it took a while for me even, to read it and know it, is to experience this. And it becomes very important because energy affects energy. Oh yeah, I go, yeah, but consciousness is energy, and it affects the energy of what we perceive as matter. To this point, you ready? 1927, day one, quantum physics. Max Planck, one of the founding fathers, comes up with this sentence, which I love. The mind is the matrix of all matter. I go, what the hell does that mean? What he was saying is the consciousness, the mind, is the creator of our experience of matter, that it's all created from our consciousness. Now, again, this is, if I'm just telling you, go, oh, that sounds interesting. I say, no, it took more than just interesting to really understand this, because It says the mind is a creator of matter. So if you change the mind, you are changing the creation. All of a sudden it's like, oh my God, we're creating this. And it's coming from consciousness. And the more consciousness we have, the more power we have in manifesting what we want. But then come some issues in the whole story, which then makes sense of how come if we're all creating this, then where do all the problems come from? Did I want to make this world with war and violence? I say, that's not part of my creation. Yeah, but we're creating it. And I go, the big story is we've all been programmed and that 95% of our life is coming from this program. The sentence I said from Max Planck, the mind is the matrix of all matter, is where the movie The Matrix got its title. Because the movie The Matrix is, yes, the mind of these characters are creating these experiences. I go, that's a true story. We're creating this. And then you look around, you go, but why would I created my disease? I created the problem. I've created this violence. I go, you didn't, it didn't come from who you are. It came from a program, as the Matrix movie suggested, because all of us got programmed. And I'll give you a simple reason why. The brain is a computer, folks. It's the most powerful computer humans ever experienced, but it shares the same components. And I say, in the old days, you go buy a brand new computer and you plug it in and push start and the screen would light up and it's booted. And I say, now do something. And you go, well, I can't do anything. I said, what do you mean? I said, first you got to put programs into the machine, then you can use the machine. I go, it's exactly the same for the human brain computer. It lights up, it boots up, the screen's on in our mind in the last trimester of pregnancy. But I can't use the brain computer until I get programmed. So the first 7 years of our life, our brain is in a state of hypnosis. And I say, why? Well, if I just ask you a simple question, how many rules do you think we'd have to learn to be a member of a family and a functional member of a community? Thousands and thousands of rules. I go, an infant can't read, an infant can't, learn this that way. So nature facilitates, because nature said, you want to learn the rules of life? Your mind is in a state of hypnosis. Watch your mother, watch your father, watch your family, watch your community, download the behavior. You're downloading other people's behavior by observing them. Now comes a bit of a problem. I said, well, you're downloading all this behavior, but while you were downloading it in the first 7 years, the conscious mind wasn't working. And I go, so what? And I say, well, the conscious mind would be a filter to say, oh, that's a good program. I'm going to keep this one. No, that's a bad program. I don't want this one. I go, it wasn't working. So you downloaded good programs and bad programs at the same time. And I go, so what? I said, well, these are the programs that are built into the computer. And I go, so I said, well, you can use those programs. On a computer, we type on the computer, we put our information into the program. Well, the conscious mind is like typing on our program, putting in what we want. So the conscious mind is the one that's personal to each of us. That's the one connected to our spirituality. And I go, so what? I go, well, the conscious mind is creative. I go, yeah, wishes, desires, aspirations. I ask you, what do you want out of your life? Guess what? Your answer comes from creative, conscious mind. So I say, well, if the conscious mind is running it, then we should manifest everything we wanted. And I go, that would be true, except, Nicolette, I got to tell you, this exception is the monkey wrench that ruins the whole machine. I go, what is it? Well, imagine the body as a vehicle for a second with a steering wheel. Okay.
Right.
And that the conscious mind, creative wishes and desires, is going to drive you toward wishes and desires. But then here comes the monkey wrench. The conscious mind is not only looking out the window as we're driving, but the conscious mind can think. I say, so what? I say, well, when the conscious mind is thinking, it's not looking out the window anymore. Because when it's thinking, it's looking inside. Thoughts are inside. So if you're driving down the street and then all of a sudden you have a thought, guess what? Your conscious mind is not looking out the window. At that moment, you're inside thinking about something. I go, well, who's driving the car? I go, the programs that we downloaded in the subconscious are autopilot. The moment my conscious mind is busy, my life is taken over by these programs. I learned how to drive a car. My subconscious has a program habit. It knows how to drive a car. I don't have to rethink it. I know how to do it. So if I start thinking, then the subconscious grabs the wheel and drives me according to the program. Okay. Well, that's really cool, except for the fact is, but 60% of the programs we downloaded in that first 7 years are disempowering beliefs, self-sabotaging beliefs, limiting beliefs. So 60% of the program you downloaded are not helping you at all. But that program steps in and grabs the wheel when you're thinking. Now, how much time do we spend thinking? Science says 95% of the day. Like, what does that mean? I'll just give you the math. 5% of the day you are creating with wishes and desires conscious mind. 95% of the day you are creating life from the programs, most of which you got from other people, and they didn't answer what you wanted. In fact, if they had a crummy program, so do you have a program. You just download it. So are we living the life that we want? I go, 5%. 95% coming from the program. And most of those programs sabotage. And I go, well, then I would see if I was playing a sabotaging program. And I go, now that's again where the monkey wrench comes in. I say, why? Because if you're thinking, you're not observing the behavior. If you're thinking, you're inside. So whatever behavior is automatically playing, you don't see it, but everybody else does. And if you have negative programs, then you are manifesting negative reactions 95% of the day. Who's the one that doesn't see it? You don't see it. I go, why not? Because you're thinking, so you're automatically playing these negative programs, you know? So I've told this story, Nicoletta, for 40 some years, because it's like, okay, everyone gets this story. You know, I say, what is it? I say, you have a friend, you know your friend's behavior very, very well. And you happen to know your friend's parent. And one day you see your friend has the same behavior as their parent. And you get excited. You want to tell, hey, Bill, you're just like your dad. Back away from Bill. Because the moment you say that, I know exactly what Bill's going to say. And he's going to say, how can you compare me to my dad? I'm nothing like my dad. And the audience laughs because they all have the experience. I go, that is the most profound story in the entire world. I go, what do you mean? I say, everybody else can see Bill's behavior is just like his dad's. Who's the one that can't see it? I go, Bill. I say, why can't Bill see it? And I say, because why is he playing it? Because his conscious is thinking, he's not paying attention. So whatever is coming out from the subconscious, he's the only one that can't see it and everybody else does. And then I go, conclusion of the story, we are all Bill. Every one of us is doing this every day. We are not making life from the wishes and desires, creative conscious mind. 95% of our life is coming from the programs that were downloaded, especially before age 7. And I go, big issue here is, oh, what are my programs? I say, well, you started getting programmed in the last trimester of pregnancy. Do you have any memory of that? No. Okay, you were programmed a whole year from 0 to 1. Do you have any memory of that? No. You were programmed another whole year from 1 to 2. Got a memory? No. And another year from 2 to 3. And by the 3, you start to remember a few things. So I said, guess what? Most of the programming, you have no awareness of it. You have no idea what the hell the programs are. I go, well, how am I going to find out? And now I'm going to tell you the answer because I love it. Ready? 95% of our life comes from the programs. So the point is, your life is a printout of your programs. You don't even have to go backward. You don't have to. Why? Your programs are working right now. They've been working ever since you got them. I say, so what are my programs? I say, the things that you like that come into your life, things that you like and they show up. I say, well, that's because you have a program to acknowledge those things. But the things you wish for and desire, but you struggle hard, you have to work hard to make it happen. You're sweating. I'm putting a lot of effort. I'm going to make this work. I'm working real hard. Why are you working so hard? The answer is, whatever that destination is, your programs don't support that. And you're trying to override the program with effort. And I go, that doesn't work very well. It irritates you a lot because the more effort you put in, the less it's changing. And then that irritates people a lot. And I go, okay, the issue is this. The mind controls our biology. It's a new science called epigenetics. just to give you the idea, it's genetics, epigenetics sounds the same. I go, no. When I say this character is under genetic control, what I'm telling you is genes control that character. And that's what everybody's been taught. The character of my life is controlled by my genes, and that the genes turn on and off by themselves. And therefore, I'm a victim of my heredity. And I go, because people believe that their behavior is connected to their genes. And he goes, well, that's not true. Because the new science is called not genetics, it's called epigenetics. And I go, what does that mean? I say, what do you call skin? Epidermis. I said, what does it mean? Epidermis. I say, the dermis is a layer just under the skin. Above the skin is skin.
Yes,
Above the dermis is skin. So it's not the dermis, it's epidermis, epi above. So epidermis means above the dermis, and that's the skin. Epigenetic control means control above the genes, not in the genes. Epigenetics is our consciousness is controlling our genetic activity. Well, this is very difficult for a lot of people to get into, because if they look over their life and they go, oh my God, I got the cancer, I had this disease, I created these problems. It's like, I did this. And I go, well, you did, but you had no idea you were doing it, because 95% of your life wasn't coming from your conscious awareness. It was coming from the program. Your programs did that, not you. I go, so why is it significant? I love this, because I'm not a religious guy, but you want to get the answer real quickly. The last words that apparently Jesus said when he was being crucified was, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. I go, this is true for every one of us. 95% of your life is coming without you having any awareness, because it's playing from programs that you got from other people. And you don't even see that you're playing the program. So all of a sudden it says, forgive them. I say, forgive people. They might have been abusive to you. They may have been all kinds of problems to you. And I go, that wasn't who the way they were. That was their programming that did that. And we must separate that. And it doesn't mean you should hang around with people you don't like that have messed you up. It's just, I want you to be aware that all of us are playing programs 95% of the day, and we don't see them. But that's not us. Us, when you fall in love, the movie The Matrix, people say it's science fiction. I go, no. The movie The Matrix is a documentary. I go, what do you mean? I say, the premise of the movies, we all got programmed. I go, that's not science fiction. That's a fact of reality. First 7 years, well, we got programmed. Okay. And I go, what else did they say in the movie? They say, well, if you take a red pill, you can get out of the program. So I'm going to tell you the simple point about red pill here, and that is this. 95% of our life is coming from the program. So your life is a printout. If your programs are supporting you, then you get the things you want. If the programs conflict, then you struggle. That's a fact. Okay. But there's a point in your life where you may have fallen in love. Now, it didn't have to be with another person, although most of us have experienced it with another person. You can fall in love with a pet. Okay, yeah, you can fall in love with being an artist. You can fall in love with being a chef. You can fall in love with being a gardener, something that takes all your attention and keeps you there while you're focusing on what you're doing. Because the idea is this: if you stop thinking, then your life is not coming from the program anymore. That's the red pill. The red pill says, if I'm not thinking, if I stay present, then I'm controlling my life. I go, this is why people experience what is called a honeymoon. I go, what do you mean? I go, well, their life is blah, 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 blah. And then they meet somebody 24 hours later. Oh, life is so beautiful. I love life. Everything's great. The music is great. The food's great. Everything. I love my life. I go, you were blah, 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 blah. And then 24 hours, you found heaven on earth. And, scientifically, and the answer was this: love is the equivalent of a red pill. When we fall in love, we stop thinking. I go, and it was the thinking that put the programs in the front. But if you're stopped thinking, then you are manifesting with creative wishes and desires. That's where the honeymoon came from. So the honeymoon is two people came together. They got together, each two minds: conscious creative mind, subconscious habit mind. We come together, but guess what? When you first come together, you only use the conscious creative mind because you've taken the red pill, you've fallen in love.
Right.
And with both people are creating red pill, then they have this fabulous honeymoon. Life is heaven on earth. Life is great. But unfortunately, you can hold off thinking for a while, but you still got to start thinking a lot. You got a job, you got responsibilities, you got things you got to take care of. You start thinking. So I said, well, the honeymoon was two of these minds working together, two of the creative minds. But when thinking kicks in, then the behavior is now controlled by the subconscious programs. And when you're having a relationship with somebody, when you first start, you see who they are. That's who they want to be. That's what they are. They're manifesting. Together, you manifest in honeymoon. But after a short period, if they start thinking, then behavior comes that you've never seen in the relationship before. Why? Because we never played the programs.
Right.
But at a point, the programs start coming up, and most of those are negative. And all of a sudden, it's like, what kind of behavior is that? What are you saying? What are you doing? The arguments begin. Why? Because these behaviors never played in manifesting heaven on earth honeymoon. But once they show up, they sure as hell throw a wrench in. It's not the honeymoon anymore. Now it's aggravating. And then we each become Bill. We're playing negative programs that our partner sees, but we didn't even see we were doing it. But this leads to arguments. Oh, that what kind of behavior is that? What do you mean? What kind of behavior is that? Blah, 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 blah. Fight, fight. I go, this is a problem. Because if we become aware of the fact that that behavior that wasn't any good wasn't us, it came from our program. I go, oh, well, then I shouldn't have to have a fight with you. What we should have is a discussion. Did you hear what you just said? Did you see what you just did? Why? Oh, that's not what I meant. That's not what I wanted. That was a program. Oh, the idea then we can change a program. But if you don't see a program, you just say that's the way life is. Now is we started out honeymoon was really great. Now it's turned to crap, and now we're going to get a divorce. I go, what? What happened? The honeymoon disappeared. I go, what happened? The programs that run our life 95% of the day did not operate during that period. It was that period where you were now creating with the wishes and desires, the conscious mind, and you manifested heaven on earth. But once the programs kick in, then behaviors out of your control that you downloaded start manifesting, and most of those
Automatically.
is not too good, you know. So the idea about this again, this is a story. Forgive them; they know not what they do. If you had a partner and you could forgive them because they didn't know what they just said, then there's an opportunity to say, let's have a discussion over this rather than a fight. If we have a discussion, then we can be constructive and do something positive about it. If we have a fight, that blows the game out right there. So we have to understand this. And then I bring in the physics because consciousness, matter, and miracles. The physics comes in because the physics says everything is energy and consciousness is energy, and that energy influences energy. So your thoughts, according to physics, are creating your life experiences. Now, it's not necessarily the thoughts of the creative conscious mind, which happens when you fall in love, but your thoughts from your subconscious program are manifesting your life experiences. And so the new biology that talks about how consciousness is controlling your genes matches the quantum physics, which principle number one is consciousness is creating our life experiences. I go, yep, now physics and biology, same story. And it says, well, if you're not happy with your life, where's the problem coming from? Well, most people say, well, that person and this thing and that person, I'm just a victim. I wanted to be happy, but they got in the way. I go, no. Story of Bill. You were sabotaging yourself 95% of the day with programs you got from other people. And you didn't see it, but they did. And they responded to your subconscious programs, which is not what you really wanted to be. That doesn't represent you. But they were responding to your program, not to you. And the result is then life is a struggle. It's just not working right because you didn't see, you kept looking at them as the problem. They're the problem. But story of Bill says, no, we started the problem. We're the ones that created the problem. And we're looking at everybody else and blame them for the prize. No, we did this. Physics, new biology, epigenetics, same story. We're creating this.
Wow.
And I'm so happy to be here with you because you have a big lesson and story that you went through that becomes an important teaching thing for you to help others with your issue with cancer.
Yes, we're going to get there in a second. I mean, it's all so amazing. Thank you so much. Just wanted to stay for 1 second in the area of consciousness, if you don't mind, Bruce,
Yeah,
because
let's do it.
you talk in the book and in your videos as well, that this new science of quantum biophysics and
Yes.
epigenetics and the fractal geometry, which I don't really understand, they reveal that consciousness is responsible for our life experience, as you
Yes.
said. And for those people that are only starting to understand the working of the mind and connect with the field of spirituality, how would you really define consciousness? Is it present? Is it awareness? Is it love? Is it a high frequency? I mean, what is it?
Well, we could talk about, if I say, let's talk about human consciousness, and I could write 5 pages. Say, no, but that's very complex. Consciousness started in the first organisms. Bacteria have consciousness. Consciousness is simply the ability to be aware of the environment and make a response. And bacteria, of course, they're aware of their world, and their whole biology is based on responding to what's going on in their world. So consciousness started at that level. But over evolution, it got more and more complex, and what is the equivalent of the brain got more and more powerful and powerful until we end up with a human with this giant brain inside, which is consciousness generating brain at the inside. And so it really becomes incumbent upon us to recognize that this consciousness was there from the very beginning, even before we were there. And the idea of programming consciousness, well, that's really a very special trait related to higher organisms that have parents. I go, why should we have parents? Like 2 snails can mate, they fertilize the eggs, they go on their own way, nobody stays around, the snail comes out of an egg, no parents, but it knows how to live. And actually it does the same thing that we do, but we didn't know it, and that is it reads energy, because energy is everything. This is quantum physics. We are energy, more life. That's the game. The more energy you have, the more life you can have. So if that snail that never had parenting is moving through the world and reads the energy, if it starts to go in this direction and they feel the energy get weaker, bad vibes, they turn around, go the other way, find a different direction where the energy gets stronger, always going toward more energy. When it comes to a plant, should I eat this plant or not? And I say, well, they read the energy of the plant. If the energy is in harmony with them, they eat the plant. But if there's a plant where the energy is not in harmony with them, they avoid the plant. So I say their whole life and future is all based on reading energy. So is ours. But we haven't paid any attention to it because it happens below our understanding. We read energy on everything. It's called good vibes and bad vibes.
Yeah.
So what does it represent? I said, well, good vibes mean you're in a place where the energy around you is enhancing you, giving you more vibes, meaning more life. Bad vibes is a warning. Bad vibes says wherever you're going, the energy is being canceled. And since energy is life, canceling your energy is threatening to your life. So bad vibe says, pay attention, you're under threat. The energy in your body feels you've lost it. You feel weak, you feel vulnerable. That's bad vibes. In contrast, good vibes is you feel top of the world, powerful and anything. And I go, yeah. So everything we do is just like the snail. We read the vibes. And I go, this is not a new idea either. The Asians have been using feng shui for several thousand years. And I go, what is it? They knew that every object was actually energy and radiated energy. And then they knew some energy objects enhance your energy and some take away your energy. And they started to create an environment where you put objects based on the energy. So it give you more energy, more life. So we all do that. I tell a story in my lecture, mainly because there was only women that came in the first place because they were more sensitive to what was going on. But now the men have become more sensitive. So I got pretty near half and half coming up, really, which is really good. But so I told a story that was mainly women. I said, what was it? Well, I said, in California, we got this high class, upper class department store called Nordstrom. And I go, what? I say, well, there's a big sale at Nordstrom on shoes. They got 10 different styles of shoes, same price. So you could look at the table and you got 10 different styles. You're going to buy one. question. Ready? What was the basis of your decision? Why did you pick one? You ready? They made you feel good.
Mhm.
I said, what does that mean? I said, every shoe is energy. Every shoe based on different style has different energy. You found a style that was in harmony with you. So when you picked that shoe, that energy and you came together, you had more energy because you picked the shoe you felt good with. And people don't realize when we make our decisions, it's underneath, it's our feelings that made that decision, and our feelings
Interesting.
are based on energy. Do we get more energy if I make the decision, or do I lose energy by making this decision? All of a sudden, you see the foundation of making decisions. A lot of people, this is very important because it's very helpful. You get a very important decision you have to make about your life. Let's say move to another job or something like that. I say, before you move, you have to think about, should I do this or not? It's a question. I'm given this opportunity. Should I do it? So you think about it. And you start making a list of all the positive things about doing this. And then you make a list, well, there's some negative things, and you try to balance this to make a decision. I say that's a lot of thinking exercise, but your decisions are based on experiences. If your experiences are wrong, then your decision is wrong. If what you learned was not right, then you use that to make a decision, then your decision is not right. So I say, here's how to make the decision. Go through that exercise. That's really good. Look at all the pros and the cons. Okay. But then I say, but don't make a decision until you ask your heart. I said, what do you mean ask my heart? I say, all you have to do is yourself and say, how do I feel about this decision? Not how I think about it. How do I feel about it? The heart
Right.
is the sensory organ that could read the feeling. And if the heart feels good, then you get a good feeling. You say, yeah, I feel good. Then I said, that's a good decision. But if you start to feel like, nah, it's not, it doesn't feel just right. And I go, well, that was your heart telling you that the decision doesn't give you more energy. It's not that good one to make. So we have to trust something we've been using, but never knew we were using it. But now we can use it because we know it exists. And I say, what? Everything is energy. Everything in the universe is energy. Everything that looks like matter, form of energy. That's all it is. I say significance. Energy is life. Okay, great. And I say, what? More energy, more life. Less energy, less life. Point. If you're aware of energy, you can start to live by that as the guiding factor in anything you do. How do you feel about this? Love is a feeling, folks. You fell
Absolutely.
in love because that was a feeling that you got. And what was it saying? That person and myself, the energies come together and they're in harmony. I feel stronger with this person around me. That's a good vibe. And more life with this person around me. Well, that works, of course, until you play the stupid programs that were hidden in your subconscious mind, and then the whole thing goes to hell and everybody gets a divorce and it doesn't work. But that was because we made decisions on people's programs, but we knew who they were when they first fell in love because that's the first time they were authentic, real, playing who they really are, no program.
Right. So everything is energy. We know this from quantum physics. Even matter is not just a particle, is also a wave, isn't it? It vibrates.
Oh, yep. Take
Yes.
the atom apart, and inside the atom,
Yes.
energy. That's all it
And
was.
yes. And in your book, The Biology of Belief, you talk about hundreds of studies that have confirmed that our cells receive environmental signals, and these invisible electromagnetic forces impact our biology regulation, everything that's going on in our body.
Right.
You explain how the nerves communicate with non-physical, energetic signals, and you refer to our
But
thoughts
look
as
at it
being
this way.
energy, isn't it?
But let's just think. Let's give an example so people know what we're talking about. Your eyes see things, but your eyes see only energy of photons. Okay. But they convert it into things that we can identify and all that kind of stuff like that. So it's like you are taking energy and converting it into an experience. Sound, that's not physical, it's an energy vibration, and your brain can interpret the vibration and give different meanings to different vibrations, music or noise or whatever. I go, so our receptors are generally reading a lot of invisible things, but
Right.
turning them into an experience. So go back to, you were talking about, yeah, go ahead.
So because you also mentioned about the traditional medicine that ignores the fact that stress is responsible for 90% of doctors' visits. And you talk about the prescription drugs. You call them a tool that is silencing our body's symptoms, isn't it? You call drugs a vacation from personal responsibility, which I found very, very interesting. And I'd like to ask Bruce, if the Eastern medicine is using the waveforms as therapeutic agents, how can people use this power of energy medicine to bring themselves into a state of balance, into a state of homeostasis?
Because right now we've been programmed to look at the physical world. Oh, look, there's money, dollars. Oh, I want those dollars and all these physical things like that. And I go, well, is that really where your life comes from? I say, no, life comes from the energy. I say, some of the poorest people in the world I've seen in India, children competing with cows in a garbage pile for looking for food. And you see these kids and they're at the bottom of the world, as we know, the height of the world. I said, but they're happy. How could they be happy? They got nothing.
Right.
Because we've equated happiness with possessions. That's a Darwinian theory, matter. The more matter you have, the more powerful you are. And so we start accumulating matter. We buy this, we buy that. We buy so much stuff that the joke is we have so much matter. We have to rent a space to stick the matter in some rental place because we don't have enough room for all the matter. I go, people accumulate matter because they connect it with my success. The more matter I have, the more money I have, the more successful I go. To me, that's not success. Success is, are you happy with all that money? A lot of people have all that money. They're miserable people because they were so driven to get the money, but they never understood the happiness that you could have. Because, as I said, the Indian kids got nothing, and yet they're happy. And the point is, well, then maybe we're confusing things here because we're trying to put matter as an expression of how happy we can be. And I go, totally wrong. Happiness is a feeling. Happiness is not matter. Happiness is energy. And the point is, we keep looking for matter when we should be seeking the energy,
Right.
the feelings. Why are you here? To be happy. I said, what's to be happy? To be in harmony. I go, oh, well, there's the problem, because most people's lives are not in harmony. They're in disharmony, which means dis-ease, disharmony, dis-ease. Health, harmony, dis-ease is from dis.
Yes. Yes.
And everybody's thinking, well, if I get all this material, I'm going to be so happy. I go, no. Lots of people with lots of money are not, I wouldn't trade places with them in the world for anything. Why? Because I started to recognize that happiness is a state where the body is in total harmony. When you're in happiness, 50 trillion cells in your body are bathed in chemicals of joy and happiness and vitality and health, versus those who are not happy, because they're sending different chemistry to the body. Unhappy people are not sending love chemistry into the body. They're sending stress chemistry into the body. Growth is love. Protection is stress. And you can't be in growth and protection at the same time. Growth, you have to be open. Take it in. Food, relationships, job, take it in. You have to be open. Protection, close down. Protection means to wall off. And I go, well, growth, you have to be open. Protection, you have to be closed. I go, can't do both at the same time. And so we're finding most people are living in protection mode all the time because their belief system, they're not going to survive. Why? Because the cultural belief is a Darwinian theory. I go, what does that mean? It says, life is a struggle for survival based on competition. I go, what does that mean? He said, well, if you're not competing, you could lose. And all of a sudden you start to recognize that the competition takes more power over everything else. I'm in the competition. I'm in the rat race. I'm competing. I go, that didn't get you, that didn't make happiness. that keeps you from getting it, because it's how much competition do I win? It's like, hey, some of the richest people, again, are not the happiest people. Some of the poorest people can be the happiest people. We have to separate these things, because if you base it on your productivity and all that, you might be totally dissatisfied your whole life. But if you base it on friendship, communication, sharing love with a neighbor, a pet, a job, then that's where the value of life comes from, not the bank account.
So
Because most
true.
people put the bank account first, and then by the time they get the bank, they're all dead and ready to die anyway. Oh, I finally can retire. I got all the money. I can retire. And I go, the moment they start to retire is the moment they begin dying,
So true,
because
Bruce. Wow.
retiring is telling yourself, I am finished. That's what the statement is. I am retired. Why? I'm finished. I go, don't say that, because the brain will take the belief I am finished and finish it for you. That's
Oh,
why
for
so many
sure.
people die frequently right after they retire, because they,
Yes.
I have no reason anymore. I am finished.
Yes.
I go, no, you want to live, then be active, be using your brain, use your body. Everything in biology, from the brain down to every muscle in the body, is based on use it or lose it. Everything, your brain. Why do people get dementia? Because they lose their communication when people die and there's nobody around. They have nobody to talk to. They're not using the brain. I go, when you're not using an organ, the efficiency system says, why are we keeping this organ? You're not using it. And so biology breaks down any structure not being used. And aging is when people say, well, I'm too old to do that. And I say, well, now you just told yourself you're not going to use it. Okay. And you keep saying, I go, no, no. Every day is, you got to have some place to go. You can't just say, I'm finished. If you want to retire, you damn well better have a vision that, where am I going with this? Am I just going to sit here in this chair, watch TV until I fall over? I go, you'll die very young. But go out on the street, do something, be busy, participate in the community, help the people around you, help the environment, stay in community, keep going, keep busy, keep moving. That will extend your life.
So amazing. It's so beautiful how you link the biology of belief with happiness. And I'd love to stay here for 1 minute to talk a
Yes,
little bit about our happiness, Bruce.
yes.
I've started my career as a clinical psychologist, and I have been programmed, you're right. I have been programmed to believe in the medical model. And I was so young, and it feels strange to say it now, but there was a time when I truly believed that mental health is caused by chemical imbalance or genetic inheritance. That was the fashion until I woke
I
up.
taught that, so I'm with you.
Yeah.
Okay. I taught that
Yes.
in medical school, so I'm with.
Yes. Yes. And then I woke up and I read in your book that you've been through a similar sort of experience. You've been fully brainwashed by the science. You write in your book that at the beginning you were considered a scientific heretic when you challenge this dogma that genes control our biology. And I wanted to ask, Bruce, what was it like for you to have your discoveries dismissed, and has that impacted your mental health and your happiness at the time?
It did for a period of time. I'll tell you why, because I left the university when I understood my science did not support what I was teaching medical students, that genes control life. I was giving them a story in the medical school that people are victims. And when I understood the nature of how cells worked, I said, oh my God, we're masters. We're not victims. I said, I can't go in that classroom and tell people genes control their lives. I knew it was wrong from my research, but everybody believed in genes at the time. But I came up with, well, how does this work? And I came up with how consciousness is affected through the cells via what is called the cell membrane, the skin of the cell, which is the brain of the cell. And I came up with all this ideas like, oh my God, this is so different than anybody was thinking. But I wanted to find out what my scientific colleagues, because I was thinking, I'm so excited by this, but I could be insane. Insane people believe everything that they believe, but they're insane. So I said, well, I'm going to need a scientific audience. So I went back to my school that I walked away from. And I asked, can I give a seminar? And I said, yeah, give a Wednesday seminar, which is like they bring all the bag of lunch and they eat the lunch and they socialize. And some guy in the front of blah, blah, blah. Nobody pays attention, but hey, it was an audience.
Yeah.
I go and start to give this talk on the cell membrane instead of genetics as the source. And right at the end of the lecture, just a couple minutes before it ended, it dawned on me. Nobody ate their lunch. They sat there like looking at me like I just came off a spaceship. And And about 2 minutes later, I say, well, thank you very much. I say, thank you very much. That was the response. I stood there for the longest time. It was dead silent. I said, thank you very much. Everybody sat there looking at me. Nobody said anything. And one guy in the back of the room went, I'll remember because it was exactly twice. And then everybody looked at him and he put his hands down. Okay.
Mm.
And then, as if there was an invisible conductor, all of my former colleagues stood up and walked out.
Wow.
Not one person asked me a question. They just left. And I'm standing in that room alone now with a serious question. Am I crazy? Because I believe this is right, but crazy people believe they're right. And I must be crazy. Not one person stayed behind. They fled the room. So I got so nervous. I bought a ticket to go from Wisconsin back to Virginia, where I got my PhD with some very distinguished people. And one of them was one of the head cell biologists of the world, Lenny Rebin. And he was on my committee for PhD. And I went to him and I sat down. I remember he was in a big wingback chair at his big giant desk. And I was in a little tiny chair in front of his desk. And I said, Lenny, let me tell you my belief and what I want to hear from you. You know, what's wrong with it? So I give him the story about environment, energy, membranes, genes. And at the end, he looks at me and says, yeah, well, Bruce, that's not what we're thinking. I go, Lenny, I know that's not what you're thinking. I want to know what is wrong with my idea. So he ponders and he goes, it's too simple.
Mm.
And I laughed out loud in his face like a crazy person. Really, I started laughing and he's looking at me like, and I laughed and I calmed down. I said, first week of graduate school, Lenny, I learned something in graduate school and it was called Occam's razor. And Occam's razor is the belief that the simplest hypothesis is the most likely one and should be considered before any other hypothesis. I said, just because it's too simple, I'll accept that, Lenny. And that's when I walked away saying, until somebody, clashes with me on this, I'm going to stick to this. And a lot of people didn't believe me. A lot of people walked out on me because they were so convicted with genes and all that. And the point was, I had a choice. I could say, oh, okay, Bruce, forget what you think and go back into the conventional world. And I said, crazy. You know why? My life is 1,000 times better with the new thinking than with the old teaching. And so I'm just going to continue doing it. Why? Because I have a better life. Even if I'm wrong, I have a better life. And I kept waiting for several years every time I give a lecture, I was waiting somebody in the audience is going to pop up and go, that's wrong because, and after years, nobody did that. And then 23 years later, science acknowledged everything I was talking about. It took 23 years for them to understand the new science of epigenetics that I was teaching for 23 years while they were still working on it. And the simple reality is I was right. I go, so what? And I go, but I was right in that the behavior of being right when I applied that behavior, my life became, I was now and still have been for 28 years now or more, every day heaven on earth, because I'm following the laws of physics, following the laws of biology, and recognizing that if my consciousness is off, my life is off. And if my consciousness is high, my life is great. And all of a sudden I said, why would I change that consciousness to go back and believe the old story? I wouldn't. And I haven't. It's the old story became the new story, which I've been teaching anyway, but they're still not there completely. They're not fully there, but they're working on it.
Yeah.
Soon.
Yeah. I think the world wasn't ready for your message, Bruce. It's starting to get ready now. And I admire your resilience. And I thank you for being there and remaining there and staying there, because you're inspiring people now to do more research. And
we learn in our own ways. You learned in your own ways because you were given a terminal prognosis.
Yes. I'm going to share my story now.
Well, you should do it because what I'm
Yeah.
talking about in your story, they go like that. It's the same
Yes.
story. So
Yes. Yes, it
I'll
is.
happily sit back and listen to your story.
Of course. Well, you write in your book that the secret of life is to really harness the power of your mind. And you talk about the connection between the body and mind. And you talk about this from the perspective of biologists. And this has been mind blowing for me because I didn't understand much biology, I'll be honest. But your book is making biology a very interesting topic now. So I feel that you talk sense for me. I'm starting to understand everything. And you explain how, you know, people that are not scientists are able to really understand through your simplicity in the way you explain things, how the body's protection systems work. They can understand what stress is doing to them, you know, how they activate this HPA axis and everything, how the stress hormones, the cortisol is then suppressing the immune system and everything. So this is a lived experience for me as well, because for a couple of decades, like most trauma survivors, I kept myself busy and very stressed out with work, with studies, you know, kind of dissociated with my therapy practice, with my charity work, always doing something. And I had suspected that I could have a genetic mutation. I could carry one of these genetic mutations because my mother died fairly young of ovarian cancer. And then in my mid 40s, I was diagnosed myself with triple negative breast cancer, and I tested positive for the BRCA1 genetic mutation. And in those early times, you know, when I tried to make sense of my illness, I kind of struggled. I wondered how much this genetic mutation has contributed to my illness, because I knew from science that only 50% of women with that genetic mutation would actually develop cancer.
What
And then
percent was that? What percent was that, Joy?
50, I was told.
Yep. Okay,
50%
good.
of,
Because I'm going to go along with that to say something about it later. So
yeah.
go ahead.
But then reading your book, you know, it was like an angel coming and speaking to me, because it helped me understand how environment played such a significant role in my health and illness. And it helped me not just understand, but accept what happened. And with that acceptance, you reach the surrender. And with the surrender, you learn the lessons, and then, you know, you can forgive, you can heal, and you can transform as a person. So you use this experience in a way for your growth. It's not necessarily an illness that it's becoming a punishment in life. So I'm 6 years on now. I'm fully cured, but I'm still left with some learning, and I share the message with the world. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, because for a while I thought that maybe it's the genetic mutation.
Okay, now first thing is this. Genes are responsible for less than 1% of disease. Less than 1%. You could say genes did this. 99% of disease is environment, lifestyle, and consciousness. And I go, but those are under your control. The little 1%, okay, the gene's going to do something. But first of all, there's no such thing as a cancer gene, meaning a gene that gives cancer. There is not one gene that if you got this gene, you are definitely going to get cancer. No. The BRCA gene, which scares women to crazy, I wanted you to say it, 50% of the women end up with cancer. My point is, you're not talking about the 50% of the women that have the gene and didn't get the cancer. So what was the point? Having the gene didn't cause cancer because they have the gene, but they never got the cancer. So what's the difference? And the answer was not the cancer so-called gene. It was the harmony or disharmony in that individual's life that activated the gene. People say the gene activated. I go, no, the gene didn't activate. Gene's a blueprint. It can't activate itself, but the mind can call up the gene and activate it. And that's what happens. There is not one gene that causes cancer. Very interesting study. They looked at what happens when a child is adopted into a family where there's cancer running in the family. And it turns out the adopted child will pretty much get the same family cancer like any of the natural kids in that family, except the adopted child has completely different genetics. The cancer was programming or misprogramming that created disharmony, which then characterized that individual's life. And disharmony is the cause of dis-ease. 90% of cancer is not even anybody's cancer in the family. They just get spontaneously got cancer. They didn't get passed down a gene. I said, well, then how did that happen? I say, consciousness is controlling the genes. Positive consciousness, placebo, healing. Negative consciousness, nocebo, can cause any disease. Cancer is caused not by a gene, but by a disharmony in the system. Resolution of cancer is only obtainable by resolving that disharmony. They always think, oh, we're going to kill all the cancer cells. We got radiation, we got chemotherapy. And I go, look, if you were a healthy human and you went through radiation and chemotherapy, you'd be sick as a dog, weakened and everything. I go, what about a person who's already sick with cancer? And then they hit them with radiation and chemotherapy, say, pushes them faster into that death mode. I say, killing the cancer cells? Yeah, if we kill the cancer cells, there won't be any cancer. I say, the cancer cells are the result of a problem, not the cause of a problem. You can kill all the symptom you want, but that didn't cure the cause of cancer. Cancer is not caused by a gene. Cancer is a disharmony manifesting. And when an individual grabs that disharmony and says, I don't want this anymore, I'm going to change my character of my life, they can recover from any cancer. So the idea was, well, where did the healing come from? Not chemistry, not radiation, not chemotherapy, none of that stuff. It comes from changing the consciousness of your life, because you first have to start and recognize it was a disharmony in the consciousness. And it's not the conscious mind. It's not the conscious mind. That's you. No, 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 no. It was your program that you got from other people. It wasn't your responsibility. You were misprogrammed. And when you're misprogrammed, your life is going to misfunction. And that's why people have disease. Less than 1% has anything to do with heredity. All the rest of it is lifestyle and behavior and programming. And it's like the whole healthcare crisis hitting this planet, primarily all stress related. Stress is over 90% of doctor visits are connected to stress illnesses.
Yeah, so amazing. I find it so brilliant how you move your focus from the cell to the body, and then from one individual to the humanity, because you address to the humanity. You talk about us all. We share the same life experience, isn't it? And you write that cultures would be more peaceful. I feel you called it. If humans would love their children and they wouldn't suppress sexuality. And I appreciated your metaphor when you talk about the population of trillions of individuals living under the same roof in a state of perpetual happiness. Because you make this analogy with the human body, a community of 50 trillion cells. And I love that live in a state of union and yoga. And then you end up your book in a very positive note, talking about hope and your wish, your inner wish that maybe the humanity will come together as a global community. And I wanted to ask now, as we're talking about consciousness and the program, in our world, which is run by scientific principles.
No.
No?
It's run by technology people who use scientific principles.
Right. Okay.
A pharmaceutical company is a technology company that use science to create drugs.
Right.
Are they scientists? No, they're technologists. They're making a profit out of a principle.
Right.
And so I really want to separate that, because I claim to be in myself a scientist.
Right.
The difference between a scientist and a technologist is a scientist looks at the principles. How do things work? A technologist uses the principles to make a product.
It makes sense. I accept that. I'll rephrase it.
Really critical, because
yes,
this whole COVID story was more from technology people and wasn't fundamentally science at all. It was a very unfortunate situation, but we're beginning to find that out now that people are awakening to what was the consequence of this experimental vaccine. I said, it is damaging millions of people. It was an experiment. It wasn't even legitimate, but they claim science. And I go, they were not scientists. They were technologists. They were, how can I make a vaccine? That's technology. That's not.
I understand.
understanding. Yeah, and I really want to
Yeah.
clear that up because
Yeah, thank you.
science gets a very bad name. And it's like scientists didn't do this. It was the people who make money off of science.
Absolutely. No, it makes sense, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I'm sorry, I'm going to rephrase it now. Let's talk about the education system. What can we do? Because we don't have anything beyond the material world in the education system. We are not teaching children spirituality. We don't teach them about following their intuition and getting in touch with themselves and everything else.
We
So
live in a physical, mechanical
yes,
universe, ignoring the invisible energy. And
yes, that's
where the
it.
problem comes from, because I'll give you a simple quote from Albert Einstein. We talk about the invisible energy. You're all surrounded right now. We're all surrounded. Cell phone broadcasts running through, television, radio broadcasts, solar energy coming through. We're in an aquarium of energy. Okay. And the fact is, they call the energy the field. Okay. And I go, here's the quote: the field is the sole governing agency of matter. I said, what does that mean? It says the invisible energy is shaping what we perceive to be matter. I say, guess what? Consciousness is an energy field, and it shapes what we perceive as the physical body. You don't change the body, you change the consciousness, and the body will conform to that. And that's where the power comes from of healing. It's the positive thinking that will generate healing, placebo, versus the negative thinking, which will cause the problems. And that's where most of the problems come from.
Mm.
So we want to fix the body. I say, no, you're wasting your time. First, you have to fix the consciousness. Then the body will fix itself. Because if you put the right field in, then the right harmony is like playing music. When you have harmony, all the cells are having a good time. But if you're broadcasting noise, not harmony, disharmony, the cells are, it's noisy in here, they're not happy either. So it puts a responsibility back onto our shoulders. When we kept blaming genes for the problem, I go, genes didn't cause this problem, our consciousness did. But if you're not conscious and you didn't know anything about what we're talking about, then this is an important point, you cannot be blamed for anything in history. Whatever cancer came, arguments, disease, broken marriages, all this kind of stuff, that's history. Okay. I say, if you had no idea about this consciousness, then you had no power to affect this. You were programmed. This is all programmed back here. So the idea of blame, guilt, shame, oh, I did this happened, I did this. And as I say, no, you didn't know you were doing it. You were playing a program. But once you learn that consciousness is in charge, well, then you have to change the way you're living
Fair
because
enough.
you have to move into another way of doing it. But when you move into the other way of doing it, the new energy is the new age kind of idea. People yell at the new age. New age just means new ideas, new energy in the field. And
Right.
our way, we must be broadcasting better energy than we are broadcasting, because right now we broadcast Darwinian energy, which is struggle, competition, violence, and that's the world.
Separation. Right. So now, Bruce, if the school is not covering this, if the families are not prepared for this, how do we elevate the level of individual and collective consciousness in the world?
Well, thank you very much for this participation in trying to do that. And the idea is what? Knowledge is power. People have been programmed with a lack of knowledge, which means a lack of power. If you don't have knowledge, like you're in charge, then you're a victim of the world. And I go, nah, but that's because you didn't know you were in charge. So we need knowledge. So I say, then the evolution of this planet is to take back the education system of making us more victims and more, working force rather than living force. We came here to have a life. Work came second. Life was here first. We came here before there was struggle and jobs and all that stuff. We were like in the petting zoo of the great Garden of Eden. Before we used our consciousness, we were just like any other animal, enjoying everything. The weather, the wonderful food was coming off the trees. It was great, But then we started thinking, and we separated ourselves from the garden, and then the whole thing started falling apart from then on. To the extent now that the way we are behaving, which is based on the way we think and we've been programmed, is undermining the web of life to the extent that science has been telling us for 15 years, nobody's paid attention, that we're going extinct because our behavior is compromising the web of life. And if we want to survive, then we have to learn to live in harmony with life, not try and control it like we think, oh, we're so smart, we're humans, we can control anything. I say, how's that working? I say, well, with the control, we are now facing extinction because we destroyed the environment. And I say, how are you going to change it? I say, education. Consciousness has to be educated because it's been miseducated through the programming. And so thank you very much for giving me a platform to talk to our wonderful audience, because our wonderful audience is facing the problems we all face. And the question is there a resolution? The answer is 100% resolution, is to become more knowledgeable about how you work and who you are. Because if you do that, then you have power over your life. And I am a student of that. What the hell did I know? The first 40 plus years, I never even believed in love, because every time I tried to find love, it wouldn't work. And I didn't realize, well, I was programmed in that first 7 years by observing my mother and father, and they had a very dysfunctional relationship. What did I learn? Dysfunction. What did I manifest? Dysfunction. Until I started to recognize, oh my God, my behavior that I'm not even paying attention to is undermining my life. And then I had the option of now being aware to say, well, then let's change that. And I did. And that's why I can honestly say 28 years, honeymoon every day, 28 years. I love it.
Wow. So happy to hear that. So happy for
It's
you
possible. It's totally,
and
that's why I wrote a
Margaret.
book called The Honeymoon Effect.
Yes, we
This
can
is
talk about
science.
that maybe. Yeah, I would love to. I wanted to ask, do you follow a consistent practice of meditation or anything like that to keep yourself in a state
No,
of high
no,
consciousness?
I
No,
reprogram the limiting beliefs.
right.
So
So you just work this way. Yeah,
I don't have to deal with them anymore, which means I don't have to work on them anymore, because they've been adjusted to support me rather than undermine me, those beliefs. And so do I have to do any kind of special thing? No, I just wake up already happy, and will continue that for the rest of the day with not letting other things take away my happiness. Doesn't mean everything works for me. No way. No, it doesn't mean, oh, Bruce, you got everything. I said, no, but guess what? I don't care. If it doesn't work, there's something else going to happen. So I don't really care. I don't hold on to what doesn't work. Let me give you a simple story, which I think is profoundly important. Buddhist monks are prohibited from touching women. They can't do that. It's like, that's no, no. So the story goes, there's two Buddhist monks walking along a trail. They come to a river, and at the river is a woman all dressed up in her wedding clothes. And she's crying like crazy. And they ask, well, what's wrong? She says, well, I can't get across this river without ruining my wedding clothes. So one monk picks her up, carries her across the river, and drops her off on the other side. The two monks continue walking. An hour down the road, the one who didn't pick her up looked at the one who picked her up, and as he said, you picked up a woman. And the one who picked up the woman said, yeah, and I dropped her off an hour ago, and you're still carrying her. Meaning it ended, but what we carry with us is going to aggravate the hell out of you. When it ended, he dropped the woman off that long ago, and the other guy's like, he carried a woman for an hour. I was like, nah, we do that all the time.
yeah.
And it's like,
So
letting go, let go, babes.
yeah, so powerful and so true, and not that complicated, is it?
Basically comes down to simplicity, and it comes down to, as I said, energy is life. Follow where you get more energy, and disconnect where you lose energy. And that is the simple equation to enjoy your life. Anything that takes away your energy takes away your joy, your health, and your happiness. And it's like, you know that when you're doing it, because you're miserable when you're thinking about some of these things. It's not giving you any, yeah, great thought. No, and it's like, no, let go of drop that woman off an hour ago. Let go. It's not, I don't have to carry this anymore. And yet we carry we carry and have a list of things of who we don't like and who did what to who and got all this. I say, boom. There's a wonderful movie I suggest everybody watch. It stars Harrison Ford. He's a really good actor.
I love him.
And the movie is called Regarding Henry. It's a story of he was a brutal lawyer, vicious but professionally successful lawyer. You know, he was one of those get you lawyer things. And he happens to go into a convenience store to get something. There's a holdup going on. And as an accident, the holdup guy shoots him in the head and he gets amnesia. I said, then what happens? Well, he's trying to recover. And he says, well, who am I? He doesn't know. So he goes over the old law cases. He goes over the issues at home that were troublesome and the issue with his kids and all this stuff, reviewing it like, well, this was my life. But now he hasn't got that memory because he just, reviewed it.
Yeah.
Well, all of a sudden he had the option to say, well, I don't want that life. So he created the happy life. He walked out at the end of the movie with love, family, and happiness going into the future. Why? He lost the memory and then had the option to create new memory. And when he created new memory, he only put the ones that had love and health and happiness into him, and then walked away a completely different human. Do we need to get shot in the head? And I go, no, you just have to wake up. What are you thinking? Are your thoughts like, oh, I can't wait for this. It's so lovely. And I want this. I'm so happy. And this is beautiful. Or is your thought, oh, I got another day at work and things isn't working. My car's not working. The house is breaking down. I got these chores. My wife and I are in an argument. And I said, where are you going? Downhill. I say, well, how do you change it? I go, very quickly. Personal story. Years back, I might have been considered something like a manic depressive. I go, what does that mean? I said, well, most of the time I'm a really happy guy, no problem at all. But then once things started to go wrong, it was a spiral downhill. Things got worse. Everything got worse. I was in a depressive state, it got worse and worse and worse. And that was a character. And I remember very distinctly, I was in my lab at the university doing an experiment. I screwed it up 3 times, spent the whole day setting up the experiment. 3 times I screwed it up, and it's like, now I just got angry with myself. I was giving myself the good talking to. Why, you idiot, you can't do anything right. You're so stupid. You keep messing this up, blah, 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 like somebody on my shoulder yelling at me. And in the middle of all this, I was the only one in the room. I hear a voice like somebody's right there, but there was nobody there. And a voice said, don't you have anything better to do than to listen to this crap? And I stopped for just 1 second. I said, sure, I'd rather go watch a movie. So I picked up a newspaper, found a movie, drove to the theater, watched the movie, came out of the movie. Guess what? No more depression. I stopped it right there. Why? I had a choice. I could continue staying in that room and make my life miserable by how no good I was. I'm not good. Or I disconnected, went to the movie and let go of the whole thing. And when the movie was over, I wasn't there anymore. That is the key that changed my entire life, because the next time I started to go down and depressive, I remembered and laughed how funny it was. The voice, don't you have anything better to do than listen to this crap? And I said, of course. And then I stopped that and then went on to something else. And I started to realize I have the freedom to stop this aggravation by changing my attention to something else. And the net result was I haven't been depressed for 30 years now. Why? Because my program says the moment I start to go there, go do something else. And that's, I learned that through that funny interaction with spirit, whatever, being alone and hearing that voice as if somebody was there. But it was the most important message I could get. If I'm keep beating myself up, there's no end to that until I'm beaten up. Or let's go do something else. That's how simple it was.
Yes.
The moment I got that, I haven't been down again. because the moment I start to go down, it's like, okay, let's go do something else. I don't have time for this right now. I don't even I didn't even start to go down because the system is already habituated the fact
Yeah.
that I don't even go near going down, because the moment I even start to generate a thought, the subconscious says, oh, let's go off, new program, go somewhere else. That to me is one of the most important lessons of life. And if people understood this, then they wouldn't stew in that anger that builds up and you can't resolve it because you're the only one stewing. You're not there with the other people. You're just stewing and it's eating you up. And I say, then what's the resolution? Only you can change it. And I go, how? Go do something else, man. That's it. That's it. I go, that's the simplest, most simple thing you could ever do.
Yeah.
Find yourself thinking negative and then say, let's think of something else. Go find something you like to do. And the moment you stop thinking, that thing is gone. But
Yes.
again, it's like the Buddhist monk. He kept thinking for an hour about, he lifted up a woman, he lifted up a woman, he lifted up a woman. The other guys, he passed that an hour ago. He was finished with that.
Well, that's consciousness, isn't it? That's about being present,
Whole story.
attending yourself.
Yeah.
So brilliant. I love listening to you. Can I shift this slowly into happiness through the perspective of trauma? You bring the microcosmos of the cell to the macrocosmos of the mind. I love how you're doing this. And you say that the DNA doesn't control our biology. It's about it's all about the environment.
Let me straighten this out because it's a very important point, okay? Because this is where conventional biologists and I differ, okay? When they talk about the environment, they're talking about what's going on out here, okay? The environment out here is controlling my genes. Well, to a large extent it does. But recognize this, my liver, for example, cannot see what's going on out here. So how's my liver going to adjust to what's going on out here? And the answer is my brain interprets what's going on out here and then sends that interpretation to my cells, which adjust their behavior to match my interpretation. But what if I misinterpret this? What if I send the wrong signals in? I go, well, then my cells are not connected to the real world. They're only connected to my belief. If my belief is not accurate, then if I engage my cells to follow my belief and my belief is not accurate, then my cells are not accurate. And that life goes wrong. This is what conventional biology has yet to understand. Yes, it is the environment, but more importantly, recognize my nervous system is between the environment and my cells. If my nervous system is in harmony, then my cells get harmony information. But if my nervous system is not in harmony, then I'm going to get misinformation. And I won't be living in harmony with this world. I'll be out of harmony with this world. And that's where the disease begins, because you're not living in harmony based on the programs. And as I said, cancer did not come from the genes. Cancer came from dysfunctional programs that take us out of harmony. I go, the environment could be perfect. You could be in the most perfect environment in the world, but if your mind distorts the program, then the cells don't know you're in the most perfect environment. They could think you're in hell. What do they know? They're just getting the signal from the brain, which interpreted that environment. And so we have to realize the difference between conventional story of epigenetics, environment controls genes, that's true story. But when it comes to humans, it's the interpretation of the environment that controls genes. And all of a sudden, I go, oh, that's not the real environment, that's interpretation. I go, yeah. And that's why two people can be in the exact same environment and have totally different response. Why? They interpret it differently.
Yes.
The cells don't see the environment, they see your interpretation of that environment.
Okay, so our beliefs control our biology. You say we are not victims of our genes, we are the masters of our fate. Now, I'm a survivor of childhood trauma. It's all about the environment. There are many people in the world that have been through some traumatic experiences, through abuse, neglect, and maybe, I don't know, other adverse childhood experiences. What is the first practical step, in your view, for listeners that have survived trauma? What can they do to become the masters of their fate?
The idea is, first of all, let go of the incidents that led to the trauma, because that's reviewing the messenger and not talking about the fact, yeah, but that happened 10 years ago, let's say. I said, you didn't walk away with them, but you walked away with a program. So if you focus on them, you're not dealing with this program. You're just going backward. Oh, blame them. I go, so what? You still have the program. And this is like why killing cancer cells didn't change the program, it just killed the result of the program. But you didn't change the program, you get cancer again. And why? You didn't, that wasn't the cause. The cells didn't do this. So what we have to look at is let go of this past, because that could mess you up, because the past led to beliefs that engage your behavior perhaps not in harmony, that you're angry. I said, well, you can't lead with anger. That's a flavor that will destroy your life. Anger, you mix anger into anything, it's not going to be happy at some point. We have to let go. We have to start to say, wait, I can change today. I said, what do you mean? I said, well, the first thing, I can stop thinking about it, because the more I think about it, the more I keep replaying it. The more I replay it, the more powerful the program becomes. It's based on repetition. This is why they always have tissue boxes in the psychology room, because we're going to talk about the past. Well, get the tissues ready because this isn't going to be fun. I go, well, there's the problem. It's not the past where the problem is. The problem is you're carrying it right now. So I don't have to say, well, how did this happen? I say, where are you now? Where's your problem now? Don't tell me about, I don't care how you got there. Tell me where you are now, because we can resolve the problem now. I cannot resolve it by understanding who did what and all that. That's just a story. That doesn't resolve anything. I'm not happy. Well, then why not? Where's your thoughts? What's going on? You know? And then start to realize, well, my thoughts are making me unhappy. Well, that's where I go back to that little interaction I had with that voice from my spirit. Said, well, if you don't like the thoughts, then change them. That's an option. That's free to you to any day, any moment. You could go, okay, I don't want to think about this. Go do something that takes your mind off of it. That's called pattern interrupt. If you interrupt the pattern, it won't play itself out. So you need to stop the pattern. One of the things is tapping, where people do this tapping.
Yes, yes.
Well, guess what? That's called pattern interrupt. Why? Because you have to pay attention to the tapping. Now you're not thinking about the problem.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, I got to tap 12 here, 3 there, blah, blah, blah. I go, well, during all that tapping, guess what? You weren't thinking about the problem anymore. What's the result? Pattern interrupt. I say, well,
Yeah.
after the tapping, I have a choice. Do I want to go back to the problem, or let's go on to something else? And that's where the power comes. It was your choice. You can go on to something else, leave that old one behind. Do regarding Henry. He lost his entire memory, but then what? He was able to create the new life that he wanted. But it's the old memories that are dragging us back and keeping us from there. And every time you play an old memory, you're creating that past. And you're creating that past. It wasn't in harmony. And that's why you got irritated the first time. But every time you think about it, you just get irritated again.
Mm.
So, going back, and my friend did this to me. Is your friend here? No, but you got the program that
Yeah.
you're learning. So
Yeah.
instead of beating up your friend, let's just work on the program. I don't need to understand how you got there. Your program is it's not working. And then you have to say, well, I want it to work. And I say, well, then you have to change the program to give you a program that will support what you want. And
Mm.
that's the resolution.
Wonderful.
You
In
know,
a
I
way,
call it a bullet in the head, but a bullet in the head is a hard way to do it.
yes, it is. It is for all of us. In a way, you somehow answered my last question as well. It was about conscious parenting. You dedicated an entire chapter in your book on this.
It has to
Um,
be,
yeah, it's
because
important,
we were
isn't it?
kids. We were
Yeah.
kids, and we got programmed by parents who didn't
Mhm.
know that the things they were saying you were recording, whether it was positive or negative. Because very quickly, because I'm running out of time, but I'll give this story very simple. When a player is on a sports team and they're not doing well, the coach doesn't go, oh, please do better. Coach says, that's not good enough. Who do you think you are? You don't deserve. They needle they irritate the players, but the player is conscious going, yeah, I'm not, I got to do better. My coach wants me to do better. I'm going to do better. I say, but if that coach was talking to a kid under 7 years old, saying those things, a child under 7 is not thinking, it's just recording. So I said, what's the difference? The older child on the team heard the words, but understood consciously that he was trying to get me to play better. A child under 7 hears not good enough, not deserving, not loving. They're not thinking, they're recording a program. What? I'm not deserving. I am not lovable. I am whatever these parents were saying. because the parents didn't recognize the child is not thinking to understand what you mean. You have to be direct with the child. That's being indirect. You got to be direct with the child, because otherwise the child just recorded everything you just said. And
Yeah.
parents don't realize that they're playing programs 95% of the time too. And I say, where'd they get their programs? From their parents. And where'd their parents get that program? From their parents. I say, this is why diseases run in families. Everyone says the genetics run in family. I go, no.
This
It's
is
this programming that runs in families.
the transgenerational trauma, I call it. It's how we learn unhelpful ways of thinking and behaving. And I love how you explain how the subconscious mind, which is primitive and it's based on, all of these genetically programmed instincts and learned behaviors, how they drive our lives and how they get us in trouble, how they make us unhappy. And you also talk about the new therapies that are coming up these days, inspired by the developments in quantum physics. You call them, very interestingly, the energy psychology.
Energy psychology.
Yes, energy psychology.
It's an energy of super learning.
Yeah,
Like,
very interesting.
What's super learning? I said, well, maybe you've seen somebody read a book where they open a book and they go to a page and they just move their finger like that and they just read every word. Boom! I just read every word on the page. That's called super learning.
Yeah.
I said, if you can engage super learning, then you can use it to rewrite a program in minutes. But if you're trying to change a program and you're not in a super learning state, then change is very much more difficult. And so these new psychologies generally promote super learning so that all of a sudden it's like, boom, download, done.
How do you see the field?
What's that?
How do you see the field of energy psychology moving forward? What's your view on this?
Well, basically is we have to get out of the old idea that talking about the old days makes it better. Talking about the old days just reinforces the problems of the old days. So the idea is, do I need to go over history? This is the difference. No, I walked away with the program. I have that now. That happened 50 freaking years ago. I'm here now. I say, yeah, but I have the program now. I don't care how I got it 50 years ago. I've been playing that program for 50 years. Do I need to go back and beat up the person? I say, hell no, that's irrelevant. I need to change the program. I say, what is the program? Look at your life. Where it's not working, it's a program. Okay, now that means I don't have to put people and personality and anything, whatever was happening, time of life, what was going, forget it. You're here now with a program. The program doesn't have time to it. If you ask your subconscious mind, because subconscious mind has no time base. So I say, subconscious mind, when did I learn how to walk? Answer, today. Why? It doesn't know the past. It doesn't know the future. It just knows what it is right now. So the mind doesn't see the past. It just stays in the present moment. So if your life is not working, it's not because the event in the past is still action. No, that's gone. It's the event left to a program that is working in the current moment. Okay. So the idea is, do I need to go back? I go, absolutely not. What the hell I want to do that for? It wasn't nice the first time around. You think I'm going to feel better repeating the story? No way.
No.
You see? So energy psychology, I'll give you a very simple insight because again, I got to leave soon, but here's a simple insight. If you look at a brain, there's a line right down the middle with the two hemispheres. There are two hemispheres, right and left. When one is like, they have opposite behaviors, like the left hemisphere is intellectual, the right hemisphere is emotional. The left hemisphere sees the whole structure. Let's say a brick wall. It says wall. The right hemisphere takes it apart and says bricks in a wall. It sees the pieces, not the whole. Okay. They're different functions. But when you were a child and you were downloading those programs just as fast as you experienced them, the two hemispheres were called integrated whole brain function. After age 7, the hemispheres separate. I go, what does that mean? Well, it's like a rhythm during the day. Sometimes we're on the left hemisphere and we're more intellectual. And later in the same day, it shifts over to the right hemisphere. And now we're a little more emotional than we were, and I say, so in our conventional life after 7, the two hemispheres are never integrated again. I said, but if you want to change a program, The program was acquired when both hemispheres were integrated. You can't solve the problem by looking at one hemisphere. You need both hemispheres to work to get back to the core. And super learning is whole brain function, they call it. That's when the two hemispheres integrate, work together in harmony, and superpowers exist. So if you want to change a belief, this is why energy psychology is so valuable, because many of them engage in exercise, which brings whole brain function back into action. It's a physical exercise, okay? And while you're in whole brain, then you can take just like a child, hear it the first time, download it. That's why a child doesn't have to hear it 10 times. Hears it once, got it, I got it, okay? I want to change the belief. Do I have to do 10 times? I go over and over and over. I go, no, if I'm on whole brain, one time, done, 15 minutes, walk away, I'm different. And this is what's so important about the new psychology versus the old cognitive version, which is really, let's discuss this. I go,
Yes.
I don't need to discuss this. I'm living it. What the hell do I want to discuss it for?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love it. Thank you so much, Bruce. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with our listeners and watchers. I'm full of gratitude and appreciation for your time, for your kind support. I'm going to leave in the notes your website, a link to
Yes.
your Amazon books, everything for people to get in touch.
Well,
check
this
out
is,
your
I want to thank you just for
resources.
this second, Nikolai. Let me thank you, because your audience are people that are looking for answers, and you gave me an opportunity to offer them some answers that I think are more helpful to move into the future with. So I want to thank you, but I want to thank our audience, because they're the ones that have the option to make a change. And if they do and start manifesting heaven, the more people that manifest heaven on earth, the more it manifests for all of us on this planet. So I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I want to thank our audience for listening to the stuff that we just talked about.
Oh, thank you. You are the white light, Bruce. Thank you so much for showing up. Full of gratitude. Many, many thanks.
Thank you.